This is the Timex Sinclair 1000, and in 1982, it was absolutely revolutionary. Not because it was powerful, but because it was something nobody thought possible, a real computer for under $100. This was actually my first real computer. This little fella opened up a whole new world to me. In 1982, personal computers were brand new tech and weren't cheap. The Apple II was pushing $1,300 in 1982. The Commodore 64 was around $600. Most families couldn't justify that kind of money for what in those days was essentially an expensive toy. But $95.95, that was impulse buy territory. That was, maybe we can swing this kind of money. And for at least the first 18 months or so, this pricing strategy worked. My wife bought me one about a year after I arrived in the States. Timex claimed they were cranking out one of these things every 10 seconds to keep up with demand. The competition freaked out. Commodore started slashing prices and offering trade-ins just to compete with this little plastic wonder. So, what exactly did your $100 get you? Well, this is the North American version of the Sinclair ZX81 from Clive Sinclair in the UK. Sir Clive, as he was later knighted, was a sort of forerunner of the Elon Musk / Steve Jobs type of tech entrepreneur character. Interesting guy. Anyway, you got a Zilog Z80 processor running at 3.25 megahertz, which sounds pathetic now, but was respectable then. The Z80 was a solid and widely used general-purpose CPU. You got 2 kilobytes of RAM. That's not 2 megabytes or 2 gigabytes, 2 kilobytes. To put that in perspective, this script I'm reading now probably uses more memory than the TS-1000 came with. But it worked. To use it, all you needed was a TV and possibly a cassette tape recorder to save and load programs. TVs were all analog at the time, so all you did was connect the computer using an RF modulator hooked into the TV antenna connector. You set the modulator to an open channel on the TV, usually channel 2 or 3, and you were off. The picture was pretty terrible, but, you had video. It came with Sinclair Basic built right in. No loading operating systems, no boot disks, everything was in ROM. Just power on and start typing. And they were very clever about that awful keyboard. Instead of making you hunt and peck for every, letter of print, for example, you could just hit P, and in the context, it would know that you were trying to print. It would untype the whole command. It was kind of like a 1980s version of autocomplete. Sure, with less than 2 kilobytes of usable memory, your programs had to be tiny, but you know what? That taught you to be efficient. Every byte mattered. Every line of code had to earn its place. It was like a programming boot camp. If you wanted to get serious, you could buy the 16K RAM expansion pack. I had one of those too. I purchased it later after I was bitten by the computing bug. The little module plugged into the back and expanded your available RAM. But it was famous for one thing. It was wobbly on a cafeteria table. Bump your desk wrong and crash. There goes your program. I did that a few times. The brilliant thing was how this little computer spawned an entire ecosystem. Third-party companies made real keyboards, sound modules, disk drives, and even speech synthesizers. People were determined to turn this little $99 computer into something that could compete with machines costing 10 times more. There were even quite a few games available, blocky and black and white, but, still exciting at the time. And community-printed magazines like Timex Sinclair User popped up. Computer clubs formed. I was in tech school at the time, and one of my classmates started up a computing club, mostly dealing with the TS-1000, which was just a hoot. Many people were sharing programs through mail order catalogs and trying to type in code listings from magazines. It was grassroots computing at its finest. Now, take it off my nostalgia glasses for a moment. This computer was objectively terrible in a lot of ways. The keyboard was awful. The graphics were Minecraft blocky. There was no sound, although Strangely, I remember it as having sound, but in my research, I confirmed that it did not come with any kind of sound generation. Just shows you how your mind can play tricks. And it crashed if you looked at it wrong. But it was also magical. I mean, for the first time, regular people, 20-something like me, could own a real computer. Not a toy, not a calculator, but an actual programmable computer. Of course, we now live in a world where everyone carries more computing power in their pocket than NASA had for the moon landing. But in the early 1980s, having any computer was special. And the TS-1000 made that possible for hundreds of thousands of people in the US and more around the world who otherwise would never have had experienced it. The Timex Sinclair 1000 wasn't the best computer of 1982. It wasn't the most powerful or the most feature-rich. But for me, it was the most important because it proved that computers didn't have to be expensive to be inspiring. Sometimes the best technology isn't the most advanced, it's the most accessible. And I still think that little membrane keyboard was kind of cute. So that's another video in the can. If you found this informative or interesting, please consider liking and subscribing down below. And remember, be excellent to each other.